So in this video, I'm going to be talking about how to create a border around a certain record that you want to highlight, select. I'm sure there's a lot of things that we're going to be able to build on top of this, but what this does is it just goes up. We use the scroller up here and it comes through the records like this, and then if we want to highlight a specific record, come over here, let's say row 17, come over here and override it up here, and it highlights row, the 17 row. So the video ended up going about a little over 30 minutes. So if you don't want to watch all 30 minutes, I'm going to have everything, the answers and the code down below. I also might end up typing up a Word document. If I do, that'll be after I've finished this intro. And if you want to watch the whole thing, love to do that as well. But everything's going to be time-stamped as well, so you can find that in the description. So skip ahead. Okay, so these are the codes right here that we're going to end up finishing with. And this is the code that goes inside the object sheet, and this is the one that goes inside the module. And this just shows sort of a visual of where these cells are coming from. So the ones in yellow up here is that one right there. The green one is this right here, and then the blue one is hidden, but it's just a whatever cell you choose to link to the scroll bar over here. So I've been playing around with how to highlight a row here in a data set, and ideally what we want to have happen is we want to have a little scroll bar here, and we want to be able to scroll up or down in the data set using this little scroll bar right here. And so there's two of these types in the developer tab. So you have one for form and one for ActiveX. So in this thing, they're called the spin button. And so I'm going to come here and paste the form one right here. That's the same one as this one right here. And then there's also an ActiveX one. And now I talked about in a prior video how when you're clicking these buttons, the ActiveX one will miss some clicks if you're doing it repetitively, like clicking on this, click, 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 click. So ideally we do want to go with the form because the ActiveX is running code, and so if you click it fast enough, the code won't be able to process fast enough. And so this does not use code, and so this is why it's able to not miss clicks. But one of the cool things about ActiveX is that you can come down here, and if you wanted to, instead of having up and down, you wanted to just do left to right, we can size this to something that looks like left to right, and it will automatically adjust that. And so there's a little bit of a trade-off here. You know, it's like this is a way if you were wanting to go right to left to do that. And for like in this example, we don't have that much. So the fact that if we clicked it fast, it would miss. It might take. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, like 13. So we would have to click this maybe 17 times to get it to move 13 because it would miss like 4. That's not that big of a deal to us. But if you have a situation where it is a big deal, that could be something to consider. But in this example, I'm not going to do anything with that, but just wanted to point that out as something that's a cool feature. And so what I'm trying to do is I am like I said, I'm trying to get this to where I can use this scroll bar to move up and down. And so I've already set this up here with this right here, and I've gone into formatting control, and I've linked this to a cell that's hidden. I'll show it in a minute. And I've set the minimum value to 1, and then I've left the default maximum value to 30,000. And that may not be enough in my situation. So let me see if I can add more. Yeah, that's the maximum amount. Okay, so that should be good enough for now. in this to do that. So I've linked it to this right here, and so I can unhide this. It's linked there, and so when I go up, it moves it up by 1, the incremental amount, which is 1, and I can go down to 1. And so what we want to have happen is we want to have it when it's 1, highlight this right here, and then when I click up for 2, it's going to move it down to here. And I guess that's a little reverse, because we might ideally want this to go down. And so there is probably a way that we can do the code to do it to where it would go down when you're clicking down. But just for simplicity's sake, I don't mind clicking the up button, having it going down at this point. So that's what I'm gonna do. So I'm gonna hide this, and we're gonna go into VBA. And the first thing to do is we want to have it highlight this with a thick border like that right there. And so when you run the developer tab, or the record macros, and come into here, it throws out a lot of long codes here. This is to get the border to show, and then this is to clear the border. And so what I've done is I've come over here, and to get the border to show, I've gone ahead and I've used a BorderAround function. So come into the documentation here, and let's see here. This talks about it right here, BorderAround. It's got a bunch of optional stuff. I've gone down here to this example, and I've replaced the worksheet specification with the active sheet, because we're never going to be using different sheets. It's always going to be the same on the same sheet that the button is on. And then, so for range, because we want to add to, we're going to be adding 1 every time we click that button. I don't know of a way to do it with the range type, so I'll change it to cells, which is something you can do, and you just, instead of using range, like down here we have range and the M1, instead of doing that, we just type cells. So it would be cells, and then for M it would be I don't know, what is M? Let's say that's 13. So we would first put the row number. So if we want M11, we would put 11, and then 13, because we want it to go the 13th column, and that's going to be M. And then we would do dot whatever we want to do after that. So that's what we've done up here. And then I've added this part right here, and so this is what it would look like normally right here, and we're just telling it here simply to put a border around M11, but then we want to make it to where it moves as we click on that button. So, and I'm using M11 as an example right now, so let me go ahead and comment these out here. All right, so let's see if I run this. All right, and so it ran it there on M15 because I believe we're at 3. And so I'm going to do one more, and then we'll run it again. That moves it down 1. Do it again. Moves it down another 1. So that works well. The next part is we need another part of code that will clear out the prior selection. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use, we're going to go back into the thing it created here, and we can see that it's using a bunch of different codes here. And we can delete this portion right here and just use Borders.LineStyle equals xlNone, and that's going to do it for every single side. And so when we think about this, when it clears, we don't want the one above it to clear every single side, because then it's going to clear the one that it shares with the one below it or above it. So we just want it to clear out the left. For the one that's above it, we want to clear out the left, upper, and right. And then for the one below it, we want it to clear out the left, bottom, and right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clarify, I'm going to use these and just sort of clarify which side we want to have removed, and then we're just going to use one. So up here we have this where it's adding it, and we're going to do the same thing, except we're going to -1 and +1 on the end of it. So I'm going to pause this and then we'll be back. And so just to show how this works, I've entered in ActiveSheet.Range.Borders.LineStyle equals xlNone, and that should clear out M11. Let's see what we have highlighted here, M15. So I'm going to change this to M15. And I'm going to run this. Oh. Okay, and you can see that cleared it out there. And it actually kept all those other ones intact, which is sort of what we wanted. So let's, maybe we can use the entire thing. Let's give this a try though with the cells. Change this to .13. That erases that. Alright, so that's a simpler way to do it. Alright, so it does appear that when you're adding the borders like this, I can use this one whole code of, I don't have to specify which sides to delete. So I'll show what I'm talking about here. We got the 4 highlighted there, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this right here. Instead of using BorderAround, I'm going to use what was similar to what was created when we ran the recorder, Borders.LineStyle, but I'm not going to specify this. So Borders equals xlNone. I'm going to hit enter. That cleared out the bottom, but it left this top line here intact. And so we can do that with move it up, you can see, and then if we were to come at it from the top as well, same thing. So that appears to be not an issue. Interesting thing though is if I do an outside border here and then erase it, it overrode that top thing there. So interesting stuff. So, but anyway, we should be good with just using the simple thing right here. And so that's what I've done here. And so now what we need to do is we need to just clean this up and make it usable. So the first thing we need to do is we need to, instead of using this one cell over here, we need to use this entire row. And so how we do that is we're going to come in here, Active Sheet, and where we have the cells, first we're going to define the very first cell that we want highlighted. And so we're going to start up here at the title And so we want A8 to be the first one. So we've got 8 here and a 1. And we want it to add whatever is in that that cell up there that controls the scroll. And then we want it to go all the way over. So what we're going to do is we're going to add range. And this allows us to, just like we would do with range, and then if we were to do range in, if we were to type it out like this, that's how we would type out if we were specifying the cell. But here we're not specifying it with M11. We're using the exact cell reference to it, so we don't need exclamation points, and we can just do it like this, and then we're going to have the first one and then the second one. And so up here, range cell, that's the first one, and then we're going to have it go all the way over. This is going to be the same exact one, except we're changing the column from 1 to, what number do we need? 2, 3, 4, 5, 11. Alright, so I'm going to run this. We're going to add in one more comma there. Alright, and so it ran it down there on 13, and if we were to increase this and then run it again, great, so that's working pretty well. And now we're going to be doing the same thing, except instead of the border around, we're using Borders.LineStyle equals xlNone. So I'm going to delete all this, paste in what was above, and then I'm going to delete the stuff that relates to BorderAround. And then we want, this is for the one that's above, so we're going to subtract 1 from here. And so now I'm going to paste this in down below, and I'm going to test this, see if this works. Oops. Okay. Alright. Up 1. Alright, so it's deleting the same one, so let's figure out what's going on. Alright, so I'm going to run this test here. We're going to highlighted that one right there, and so now we want the next part to delete this one above. And there we go, it looks good. So now that we have that portion working, I'm going to copy this and paste it down here, and this is going to remove the border below, so if we're going the other way, we want it to clear out the one below. And we're going to change this from a -1 to a +1, and so I'm going to delete all this other stuff as well. And at this point, I think we're ready to run it. So I'm going to come into the Excel file, and I'm going to right-click on this and assign macro, and I'm going to choose the macro that I'm creating. So it is record highlight, and then I'm going to test it by clicking up and down here. And you can see it's moving up and down just like we wanted it to do. So it's working good. Okay, and now what I want to do is I want to add in something that's sort of like an override. So to avoid having to scroll all the way down through these records, say I was all the way up there and I wanted to highlight 120, right? I have to click this thing like over 100 times. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to just enter the row number and then have it highlight that if I desire to do that. So I've entered in just some things up here in a number. So what we want to have this do is we want to have, whenever I enter a number here, we want to have this override this cell that's hidden over here, right here, that controls the up and down on this thing. And how we're going to do that is we're going to take the code from a video I did previously. So that's how to have bidirectional linked cells in Excel. And what we're essentially going to do is we're just going to tell Excel that whenever I change this number up here, I want you to change this cell over here, and then that will update the highlight. And so you can go and copy the code right here, and then we're just going to change these cells. And so that's what I've done here. And we're going to paste this inside of the appropriate worksheet that we're looking at. So we're looking at straddle. Come here to straddle, and you get on the worksheet and then click on change. And so you want to make sure that this is the top part there, and then we paste it in, and we change. We want whenever K3 is updated, we want the cell A4 to change to the value of K3. And so that's that portion right there. And then we also want to tell it, and this is where it gets interesting, because we want to call that highlight. So we want to call a function over here and have it run this. The issue is that because the way we structure this code down here, we have it clearing out the borders, one directly above and one directly below. Well, if we're skipping to a certain place on the data, it's gonna, like what I did here, it's gonna override, clear out this one and this one. It's not gonna clear out this one. So we've got to change the code around where it clears out everything. And then the other small issue we have here is that changing this to 13 is not going to highlight record 13. It's going to highlight 13 plus 8. So we've got to figure out how to get it to where we enter in 13 and it highlights 13. So to figure out how to edit this code so that it clears everything from the table, what we're going to do is we're going to come up here to the developer tab, and we're going to record a macro, and we're going to record it. We're going to come down to the first cell in the one we want highlighted, and in this case we're going to use row 23 here. I'm going to go over and then up, and then we're going to come into the Visual Basics, and under the module where we recorded the macro, we can see it returns this 2 lines of code right there. And so if we come over here, and I'm going to run each of those lines of codes, so I'm going to run the first one, and you can see it's selected. Let's see, it selected 22. So what I'm using I used 22 in that situation, so we'll just change this here to 23. There we go. Highlights 23, and then it selects it all the way up. And so now at that point, what we want to have it do is clear out the formatting, and we're going to do that. And I know that this line is included, but when we go to actually write this up, we're going to have it select the row just above the one that we want, and then include everything above it. So for now, though, we're going to have it include that so we can see that it works. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to type in selection, and then I'm going to do what we had up here. So Borders.LineStyle equals xlNone. And there we go, it cleared out that. So that's what we're going to use to clear it out. And what we need to do next is we need to change the range to cells that we want. So I'm going to come over here to the module, and we can see that we want it to select this right here, this cells, and then we have the -1. That's going to be the one right above it. And so I'm just going to copy and paste this. Alright, so I'm going to give this one more shot here. Okay, now we're on line 24, and you can see it's highlighted line 23, and it selected all of it, and it cleared out everything. And so I'm going to comment this out so that we can see, actually, you know what, I'm just going to up here, let's use row 30 here. Okay, 31. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to run this. Selected the one above it, selected everything, and then cleared it out. So that seems to be working pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and copy and paste this in here, and then we're going to do the same exact thing for the one below, except we're going to be changing this around a little bit. And what we're going to do, paste this in here, and we're going to change this to +1. I want to change this to down. And I believe that should work. Let's give it a shot here. Okay, so over here, I'm going to change this to 20. Whoops, what happened? Oh. Let's see. Alright, so I had updated this one right here. I didn't update this one, so I'm going to add a plus there. And now what we should have is when we change this to something like 13 here, and then we went up, we'd go up, so let's say 11, it's going to clear out that and move it. Alright, so that works good. Now the only thing we have left to solve is getting this number to match the row number. So the issue with this is that it starts on row 9 here. So this is the first record, and in that box it's going to return 1, and down here it's going to return 2. And so if we had a column where we had these records numbered, this may not be that big of a deal. We could just come up here and say, you know, I want the second record, and it would return right here. But because I don't have something like that in here, what we're going to do, the easiest way to solve this is we're going to come back into VBA, and we're going to come to the place where I pasted in the thing to change around this thing, and we're going to subtract 8 from what we enter here. So we want A4 to be 8 less than. And so what we're saying here is if we change K3, we want A4 to match K3. And so we want A4 to be 8 more than K3. And so, or 8 less, excuse me. So in this situation right here, we want to enter 10, and we want to have it return line 10, and that would be 2 up here. So we're going to put -8 here. I'm going to close out of this, and then let's give this a try. Put 11, and it should move it 1 down. Alright, there we go. And so to get this to not select this, what I'm going to do is come into here. Right below here, I'm going to say something to deselect it. Let's see what we have. All right, I'm just going to have it reselect what we're on, and so I'm going to want just the first cell. I don't want it to select the entire range. And so let's make sure we got this here. Cell 8 plus. All right, let's give this a shot. Just to make sure this works, I'm going to come down here. Alright, so that's going to look like this right here, and what I've done is I've just sort of gone back to basics here and said cells, and we started out with 8, 8, 1, oops, dot select, okay, and that selects the first one, and then I said, alright, we're going to add the A4 there, and so then that selects the current one. So we're going to paste this in right here, and that'll deselect that massive range. And so now let's give this a shot. Alright, it seems to be working pretty well. So that's pretty much what I wanted to talk about in this video and walk through that. I'm going to leave the codes down below, and yeah, thanks for watching.